It's pretty nuts. So thanks a lot for coming out.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
I really
Definitely
appreciate it.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
One time to the beat.
Adam Jackson. Tell me, well, let's start at the beginning. I guess, tell me, where did you serve? What was your, sorry, I'm not a military guy. I never served, so thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We'll start
Appreciate
there.
that.
How would you introduce yourself? So where did you serve? What part of the military were you in?
So I started out in the Army 2002. It was a few months after 9/11. I decided to join after that because, it was pretty devastating what happened, and it was kind of an effect on me because I was from New York. So I felt a draw to go and defend the country. So that's kind of where my career started. 2004, I deployed to Iraq, and then Afghanistan deployed in 2008. And then I decided to join the Air Force in 2010, and that's where I serve now.
So you still serve in the Air Force. So I must be. So before the Air Force, what were you doing?
Oh, I started out in the Army for. I did the Army for 8 years.
Oh, I didn't know people did that.
Yeah, I mean it's not traditional to switch, but I decided.
Okay. Why'd you switch?
I mean, I guess I got tired of being shot at, to be honest.
Okay, that's a good reason.
I decided to go turn wrenches on airplanes instead.
So you're a mechanic?
Yeah, that's where my story started. In the Air Force was turning wrenches, but now I'm in more of a management role. So.
Okay, right on. And you're still with the Air Force. Yeah, but my dad was an airline mechanic in the Army at the end of the Korean War.
Oh, really?
So,
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool.
That was a different kind of war.
It was a different kind of war. Yeah, he was right at the tail end. He didn't really, I think most of the fighting was pretty much over by then. I guess they were cleaning up or whatever. Yeah. He didn't talk about it much, but yeah, he was a crew chief.
Oh, yeah, that was my title too.
Oh, really? Yeah, right on.
Technically, it still is.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So, what do you do now mostly? Administrative stuff?
So I'm a first sergeant now. So we're kind of like an HR person. It's like an HR department all in one. So handle everything internal. We keep the morale of the unit going, and then make sure that everyone's ready to deploy at a moment's notice. So.
Okay. So you're based here in Connecticut then?
Actually, I'm based in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, my base is up in Springfield.
Okay, and you don't go overseas anymore. You don't get deployed anymore. You basically do everything here.
Sometimes we do stuff overseas, training wise, but I haven't been deployed officially since 2008.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you reached out to me a while back, well, not too long ago, because you had an experience in Afghanistan in June of '08. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So without me botching up what exactly that was, can you sort of tell me like the events leading up? What were you doing? Sort of, were you on a mission? Were you going somewhere? Maybe you could start that day, a couple days before. Just lean us up and tell us that story and kind of what happened.
I was in country for about 4 months at that point, so I was getting acclimated, and it was actually in the middle of a team transition. So when I showed up, there were people on that same team that were leaving. So it was kind of a handover, if you will. And the rest of the team had just showed up probably 2 months before that. So we had just started really forming a strong team, getting used to, how we operate together. And I guess leading up to that day, the Taliban had started picking up their attacks and stuff, and they were attacking convoys. I think there were a bunch of civilian convoys and Air Force convoys that were getting attacked. And their mission is essentially go from point A to point B. Like, they're not there to essentially fight, right? So our job was to train the Afghan National Police and teach them how to do patrols and also deter, Taliban movements. So leading up to that day, we had heard that there was convoys getting attacked. They were being ambushed. So we're like, all right, well, let's go do our thing, and it was kind of like you got used to doing these day-to-day convoy things. We never did things at the same time, but this particular day we did it toward the end of the day. So we're like, maybe we'll catch them, And I remember we went north of where we were in Kalat City was where we were sitting. I think we went 20 miles north. Nothing happened. Mm-hmm. And we decide, well, let's go 20 miles south of where we are. So we end up going south of our city, and it was pretty much right at dusk. And I remember getting an eerie feeling. I'm like, something's not right, you know? We could see, well, at least I could see because I was in the turret. I could see probably 5 miles down the road, and there wasn't a car in sight. And the town that I could see that was also a few miles away, all the lights were out, and I was like, that's not a good sign. Like things are too quiet, right? So, um, I like to say we have a sixth sense somewhere in us, right? It was like, all right, Spidey sense is going off, and so within about, my commander was like, I think we'll go another mile and we'll turn around, you know, and we'll start heading back. And within like 20 seconds of him saying that, I remember stray of fire went across or bullets went across the road, and it just, I always tell people, I'm like, this was like the Matrix. Like things started slowing down,
Okay.
and I don't know if it's because our brains are just recording that information more, you know, or your adrenaline's going, whatever it is, but yeah, it got intense really fast, and I should have pointed out that there was only 3 Humvees in this, so there's only 3 people shooting back. So myself and 2 other gunners in the other trucks.
So did
And
each truck? So there's 3 Humvees,
3 Humvees.
and
Yeah.
how many people in each?
It was about 3 in each.
Okay, it's about 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not many.
Yeah.
And I had the heaviest weapon. I had the 50 cal. Our middle.
Now, were
truck.
you exposed? You said you're in the turret. So are you out?
Yeah, I mean we had some armor around us,
Yeah.
but like you're exposed as soon as you pop your head up.
Okay.
Like, you know, they can hit you. So yeah, we started engaging the enemy, and before we knew it, we were getting hit from both sides of the highway, and it was like, this is an impossible scenario. We're getting double-sided ambushed, you know. So the first 5 minutes, it was like all-out war, you know, and it was insane. I lost count of how many RPGs were going overhead, and I could hear the bullets like going right by my head. And I was just like, this, you know, I hope we make it out of here, but, you know, where's the end to this thing? It wasn't stopping, and they kept attacking, and more guys were showing up. So, yeah, and then at one point, the middle truck, it got hit by an RPG, and that made it even worse. I didn't know at the time. No one got injured, but I saw the guy that popped up and did it, and I engaged him, and then it just kept going, and we're like, yeah, we need air support, we need backup, you know, like we need someone to come help us here because we're gonna run out of ammo at some point.
So are RPGs like, are they like small missiles? Like what's in our? I mean, I hear that term all the time. I've probably heard what it is, but explain that to me again, please.
So it's a rocket propelled grenade.
Okay.
There's different versions of it. So there's some that are like anti-personnel. There's some that are anti-tank. The ones they were firing at us were mostly anti-tank. The one that hit the middle vehicle was a personnel, so it has more like BBs in it versus they normally, I think they have like a rod in them that's supposed to penetrate the armor.
Okay.
So luckily, like at that time, no one was injured, you know. But yeah, so then as the night went on, we were still waiting for air support to show up, and they were just engaged somewhere else.
And there's nowhere you could go. It's not like you could back up and turn around or go forward or.
No, part of the thing was my commander said, "Hey, let's stop the vehicles like right away," because our Afghan counterparts were completely exposed. They were driving around in Ford Rangers, like they had no armor, and they ended up hiding behind some rocks because they had nowhere else to go, right? So my commander's like, we're not leaving them behind, you know, and we're here to fight anyway, so let's just stay and fight. And we sat there rolling the vehicles 5 miles an hour back and forth, just trying to, you know, keep pushing them back. And it was about 30 minutes into this thing. I remember it was like, there was almost no sunlight left. And my commander he was on the radio talking to air support, telling them where we were. And I saw a muzzle flash coming from the ridge line. And so I just unleashed fury on that spot, right? I
Yeah.
could barely see, because it's dark. I only had iron sights, and I'm following the tracer fire. Every few rounds there's a round that you can see. It's like a phosphorus in it.
Okay. And
Uh,
that's
yeah,
so
it's
you can see what you're doing at
yeah, so
night,
you
I
can see
guess.
where you're aiming, right?
Okay.
So I just took aim at this position, and I saw a puff of smoke. I didn't know if I got him or not, but he stopped shooting. So,
Okay.
um, and then shortly after that, air support showed up, and they kind of rescued us. They dropped bombs and stuff for us.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I'm giving the shorter version of this
Sure.
story,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, it was intense. It really was.
When we first talked about this, was something you said that most people don't escape this sort of ambush. So you feel did you everybody made it?
We all
All
made
those
it.
good.
Myself and one of the drivers from the other truck and another gunner got small injuries, but nothing
Okay.
life threatening. Yeah. In fact, my sergeant, he was a ranger, so I remember him telling, like, now we talk about it, right? And he talks to his buddies all the time, like, I can't believe he survived a double-sided ambush. Like, that's an impossible scenario. We don't even really train for that because it's like no one lives, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I think what helped was just moving the way we moved the vehicles that day. I think stopped them from locking on our positions, and actually we were over prepared because my sergeant was crazy about having extra ammo. So we had tons of ammo in our trucks, like more than most had. And then we secured ammo in different places on our trucks that made it more accessible for us to get to it. So all of those things and just the training that we went through prepared us for that moment. And I don't think the Taliban expected us to stay
Yeah.
because, and in fact, I think that's why in the first 5 minutes it intensified so much because they're like, whoa, no one ever stops. These guys just stopped, right? And at the time, we didn't know there were over 40 Taliban attacking us.
Wow.
So it was basically 40 against 3 because the guys in the trucks couldn't shoot back. If they rolled the windows down, there'd be bullets ricocheting inside the trucks.
Oh, so you're the only vehicle that could shoot back. So it was
All
only,
three vehicles could shoot back, but only the gunners can shoot back.
oh, because yeah, you rolled down. Okay.
So
Yeah.
we're essentially protecting everyone in that vehicle,
Gotcha.
right? And then they're helping me too, by observing anything they see and telling me.
So you three guys are up out of your turrets, and you're the only three shooting back.
Yeah,
Holy Moses.
yeah. So
Yeah. How is to talk about it? Because you hear a lot of they don't like talking about stuff. I mean, it take you a while to be able to relive this and tell the story, or
I mean, we've kept it pretty close. Our team has. I mean, we've told some family and friends the stories,
Yeah.
but we never made it publicly known.
yeah,
Probably partially because it was probably still sort of official. We couldn't really talk about it, and we were still in the country, so I think we didn't want to give any tactics away that we were using at the time that are
sure,
less relevant now because times have changed anyway. But yeah, I think it was more for that. And we wanted to be able to tell this, in a documentary
sure.
versus maybe someone just taking it and making a feature film out of it and, Hollywooding it.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Did you? I mean, have you ever been in any other fights that are similar, or maybe not as, most likely, maybe not as I don't know what the word is, engaging or big, maybe.
We were definitely in a lot of firefights. That one stuck out as the biggest one for us. Actually, after that firefight, we pretty much shut down Taliban operations in our region for about a month and a half. Like, we hurt them pretty bad, and so we were not seeing them move around at all. In fact, when we were out patrolling around, we'd hear them on their radios because they would talk on this specific frequency, and I could hear them saying, "Oh, we see the infidels. They're coming. Get ready," And then their commander would get on and be like, let me look. And he's like, oh, don't mess with those guys. Bad things happen.
That's good.
Yeah, I
You
mean, they
scared 'em.
started recognizing our trucks.
Yeah, that's good.
In fact, they came up with a name for us. Our interpreters tell us, they're like, they call you guys the Wolves. And
Wow.
I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You have a cool
All
name.
right. That is a cool name. But your official name though is I'm gonna get it wrong. I hope not. Swamp Fox.
Swamp Fox,
Swamp
yep.
Fox. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys came up with?
No, actually, there's a long history to Swamp Fox.
Okay.
To simplify it, have you ever seen the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So he was essentially the fox in the swamp, is I believe how they use that term. But it started from there because he was cunning like a fox and he was attacking the Brits from the swamp, right? So they called him the Swamp Fox.
Okay.
And so oddly enough, it carried on through history, and units, I forget it was South Carolina, but the units would carry the Swamp Fox name. And it just kept getting carried on. In fact, I'm seeing more units pop up with the name now, and I'm like, oh, that's
cool.
weird, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was actually a particular mission we went on that we used some of the tactics from that movie. We were like, hey, you know, what they're doing kind of makes sense. Like the Taliban are always sneaking up on us, right? Why don't we sneak up on them? So, in fact, we were in Stars and Stripes, just a newspaper.
Yep.
They wrote a story about us because they were with us on this particular mission. But basically, we went into this town. It was abandoned because Taliban had kicked everybody out, and they had like caches of grains and stuff like that there. But basically, this village you could see the main highway, and they could see for 5-6 miles down the road, so they could see us coming, right? So it was like an
It's
observation
not
point
like
for
here.
them.
Yeah. It's crazy you can see that far, but yeah.
So we're like, you know what? Let's go in there with our police counterparts. We'll do a whole bunch of training, train them how to clear rooms and do all that crazy stuff. Make as much noise as we can because we know they're watching this village, right? And then we'll leave a small team behind, not tell the police because we didn't always trust all the police.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we were there maybe an hour. Right, we were throwing grenades, we were shooting shotguns off, whatever. So we ended up leaving like a pile of the casings and stuff in the middle of the village, and then we had our trucks leave, and myself and a small team stayed behind and kind of hid ourselves in one of the buildings. And I remember my sergeant's like, "Hey, I need you to go grab one of the Afghan police. We got to have at least one of them with us, right?" He's like, "But you can't let anybody see you doing this." So I had to I think the guy was like smoking a cigarette, right? And I had to like go up behind him, like drag him on the alley. He was all scared, and I was like, "Don't worry, you know, we're doing a little thing, you know." So yeah, we hid in this building, and not 30 minutes went by after our vehicles left, and this older guy shows up. I think he was just curious. We called him Old Coochie. That's what they called older guys there. So we kind of surrounded the guy. We, you know, asked him some questions, and then we're like, hey, listen, we just need you to like stand by because we're waiting to see if the Taliban show up, so we can't let you leave. So it wasn't another 20 minutes after that. I mean, we were pretty well hidden, and this guy pops up on a rooftop and he starts pointing at us. I mean, we're looking out a small window like this.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's yelling like, "What are you doing in there? Who are you?" And we're like, what? You know, we took in our body armor off this point because we're hot, you know, it's the middle of summer. And me and one of the contractors that was with us, there was another company there that was doing like some security stuff. We just like take off out the back door. I got no body armor. I got my friend's weapons. So it's not even sighted to me. I take off out the back, and we finally get this guy. It was kind of a maze to get to him. And we're telling him to get down, you know. And he's like, okay, you know. So he starts getting down, but we lost sight of him because there's like this big wall through the whole village. And he ends up jumping off the backside of this thing, and he darts out the back of the village, taking off. It was probably like 3 PM. It's broad daylight. And so we just start chasing this guy, and we're running through like farm fields, you know. And finally, like, I lost sight of this guy. He just disappeared. And we like ran to the top of this hill, and I'm just like scanning, looking for this guy. And all I saw was like 5 dudes getting on this tractor. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I was like, pew, 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 you know.
Yeah.
And they all put their hands up. Oh no, we'll give up, you know. So it turned out they were like Taliban informants,
Okay.
and they were collecting intel for the Taliban, but they had seen us in the village, and I guess they were watching us under binoculars or something. So they
Okay.
saw every movement we made. But yeah, that was a crazy mission, but it was cool. We got to use something from, you know, essentially a movie,
Right.
but it worked.
All right. Yeah, I think I saw that article in this because when you got here, I told you I was kind of doing a little research.
Yeah.
And I just Googled, you know, Swamp Fox, your name,
Sure.
all that kind of stuff, and that art and not much stuff came up, and that article, Stars and Stripes, popped up.
Yeah,
So,
it's U.S. troops lie low, set trap for Taliban.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an awesome title.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stars and Stripes. When did that? When did you leave Afghanistan?
It was September of 2008.
Okay, so shortly after.
Yeah, so I was there 9 months total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I forget, when did the whole war wrap up? When did we withdraw? What, it was just
2020,
2020, something like that?
2021,
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
in around there. Yeah.
Okay. Long time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wild. I mean, it's been, how long has it been? I don't know. I wasn't track of
10,
time.
12 years, something like that. Easy, more than that.
At least
Who knows?
14 years?
Yeah, 14 years. Yeah.
No, 16.
What
It's really
have
flying by.
you kept in touch with what's happening over there in Afghanistan since you left? As far as have we made a difference? Is it better, worse, the same? That what do you know any?
Yeah, I have
information?
some, a couple of our interpreters made it over here, thankfully, because these guys fought like us, you know. They were fighting for their own freedom as much as we were, you know, helping the country. So, I was thankful that they were able to get here, but I know some of their families were still stuck over there, so that got kind of hairy for them, you know. I remember him telling me, you know, his family was scared and they were trying to get him out of there, which I think he was successful in doing. So, but yeah, I've heard that things have changed, even with Taliban in the position they're in now, but I can't say it's better for them. It's probably not.
Okay. You mean the citizens there, the people who live there, the Afghans?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they have less freedoms than they did before.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure because I'm
Because you
not
don't
there,
hear about
but,
really what's going on unless maybe
you
I
know,
don't.
it's pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's unfortunate.
That
you
is
know, but
unfortunate.
it is.
Yeah, 'cause we did a lot of work. Well, you did a lot of work over there.
Yeah,
I didn't do
I mean, we did a lot. I mean, it wasn't, you know, obviously it was more than, you know, fighting and stuff. It was, we were doing humanitarian aid stuff too. We're drilling wells for these villages that,
Yeah.
you know, some of these villages had to walk miles for water. So, you know, helping them out where we could was, you know, it felt good. You know, we
Yeah.
were bringing them rice and school supplies
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
You did a lot of training. I think that was a big part of the mission from, just from what I've read in the news and heard and stuff like that, just training the police force and other that. You mentioned earlier that you really didn't trust people. Have you trained anybody that did turn on you that you can recollect?
I mean, when I was in Iraq, we had an interpreter that, I can't say he turned, but he wasn't completely truthful about
Okay.
who he was, and we had to like let him go.
Yeah. What are relationships like over there? You and the Afghan or the Iraqis? Like, what's the relationship like between the U.S. military and the citizens, for the most part?
It depends. So Iraq and Afghanistan are both a bit different. Like Iraq, a lot of villages, they were very happy that we were there because, we were, again, bringing them supplies and stuff, and helping the villages out the best we could. In fact, there's kind of a funny story is this one village we used to go to all the time, and someone told them my name was Action Jackson, and these kids, there'd be like lines of kids because we'd give them candy and stuff.
Yeah.
And they'd be yelling, Action Jackson. And I was just like, this is so weird, We're all in this village, every other day, and they're screaming my name. But it felt good on that piece, but things got crazy there, too.
Yeah.
Afghanistan was a little bit different because the Taliban were in a lot of these villages. They either were infiltrated or they would go to these villages. And if we showed up and gave them anything, the Taliban likely would show up the next day or that night and burn everything that we left
Oof.
or steal it. So some of the towns were scared to even talk to us. They all had basically like a village leader, if you will. It was like a mayor that would speak on behalf of the village. And if they didn't want us there, they'd say, we don't want you here. We're like, okay,
Yeah.
we're trying to help you. But
Yeah, I get, but if the Taliban's going to come in and burn everything and
Yeah, like
maybe hurt them too, like
yeah, and we had to be understanding of that too.
Sure.
Right? We don't want to, get any innocent people killed on our behalf, just because we're trying to help you.
sure,
So maybe the way to help is just to avoid your village. You know,
sure, yeah. What's the heat like?
tense.
'Cause
Iraq.
you guys are in full gear. You said with body
Oh,
armor.
yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
how. I mean, every day on patrol,
Every
wearing that?
day. Yep. Iraq was probably the hottest. I
Okay.
remember it got up to 130 something
Oh.
degrees. And that was like
How do
mid-July.
you? I mean, obviously you hydrate. I mean, but is that it? You just drink as much water as you can.
Hydrate, drink Gatorade, anything that's hydrating, We had camelbacks, we had
Okay.
canteens, we had water. We always had water.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was hot though, and that really was not pleasant. But
Yeah, because you can't. It's not like you walk around in like t-shirts and shorts. I mean,
No.
and plus you got to stay covered because I'm assuming the sun is
it's brutal. Yeah,
it's hot. Right?
yeah. I mean, we're long sleeves.
Yeah.
They did design like special shirts for
But
our
it's a-
body armor, which was a little bit
But it's a dry
Cooler.
heat.
trash until you start sweating. We'd take our body armor off, and there'd be like literally salt lines where the sweat ended.
Yeah.
Afghanistan was a little different. I actually didn't expect the environment to be as wacky as it was, but we were 5,500 feet above sea level, and we're in this valley. And I arrived about the start of winter, so it was pretty cold. It was probably maybe 40 degrees,
Okay.
right? And
During the day.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
and then around February, it dropped to like 40 below zero.
Holy cow.
And one night, I remember I went to bed, it started flurrying, and I tried to open my door, and it was a wall of snow. We ended up getting 12 feet of snow
Get out.
in a night. I was like, what is a foot an hour? Like, that's
Wow.
crazy. So yeah, we couldn't basically move for almost 5 days because they don't have snowplows over there.
Yeah.
Everyone just kind of runs over the snow until it's packed down.
Right.
But yeah, and then summertime, I went up to like 120. So it was
That's
quite
insane.
the
That's crazy.
difference. Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know. Yeah, they got that much snow. I guess. Well, they're up. Yeah, they're up in the mountains. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, being that high above elevation,
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
it certainly made for an interesting tour.
You keep in touch with any of your guys that were in that Humvee with you that the day of the attack?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, every year up until recently, we would meet up out west and go ice fishing, and that's just kind of
nice.
our, get together, family reunion, I guess.
That's cool. Yeah. You bring your families or just three of you guys?
No,
or
it's
whatever?
just us.
Yeah. Nice.
No, they wouldn't be able to handle us.
Yeah.
We get too rowdy.
Yeah. Good. Good. Where you go?
good time.
Where?
Minnesota. Yeah.
Oh, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's cold.
Yeah, but we're used to that.
Yeah. You're used to that.
In fact, I think the first year we did it was like the coldest year for Minnesota in a while. It was like 30 below zero, and we're out there just drinking beer. It was actually like turning into slush. It was so cold.
Wow. Holy cow.
But we were catching fish and we were just having fun, so
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
So you have plans for a documentary that
Yeah.
you're kind of. That's why we first met.
Mhm.
You reached out to me and just had some questions. So what's your plan for that? Do you have sort of a plan of who you want to talk to? What's the documentary kind of starting, middle, ends, or do you have a sort of a plan for what you want to show?
Yeah, I mean, the focus is around the big firefight that I talked about, and just because there's so much to say about it, and it's such a crazy story that I think it would be the most interesting part of our tour there. I've certainly thought about adding some of the, I guess, some of our history, everyone leading up to that point, where they came from, that sort of thing, which I think would be great for the background piece. But really, the focal point is the firefight.
Is there anybody in Afghanistan? I do want to back up because I had another question
Sure.
I forgot to ask you about, because you mentioned that the lights in the city were all dark. Did that have? I mean, did the Taliban coordinate that, or does that just happen to be? Did the villagers know that something was going to happen, so they shut all their lights off? Can you talk to me about
Sure.
that?
So most of these towns, they didn't have like, it's not like here, you didn't have a grid, right? They had like generators, or they had some sort of hydropower from a dam. Um, but the Taliban being infiltrated into some of these villages, they would go in and say, "Hey, we're about to do something. You're gonna do this," and that's probably what they were
Okay.
like. "Hey, we're gonna attack U.S. forces, and you should probably hide in your huts and turn your lights out." But I mean, little did they know that gave us a cue something was about to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. I
So,
was going to think, yeah.
um, but yeah, that's they were very controlling in that manner. They would tell these villages what to do.
Is there any? Do you think you have any chance of going back to Afghanistan and talking to some of these villagers?
I don't think so.
No,
Not right now, anyway.
not right now. Yeah, probably not a good
Maybe
place
in
to
a
go right
decade
now.
when things are
Okay.
completely cooled off. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, just wanted to get some of those experiences from the villagers there to see
Yeah.
see what they would think. I'm sure that'd be quite interesting to talk to
It
them
would be
about it.
interesting to even go back to the areas we were in, and
Yeah.
even where we were in the big firefight, just to you know
Do you
remember that.
speak any Pashto or any kind of other to communicate with, or do they speak English over there? How's that work?
They
Communication.
spoke a lot of. There was Pashtun, there was Dari.
Uh huh.
For the most part, I think we focused on Dari.
Okay.
But I've forgotten most of those
Okay.
words by now. It's been so long.
Do you did the army teach you the language, or did you sort of learn when you got there?
No, the army actually taught us. We went through a class for weeks, learned the basics of the language and the culture.
Hmm.
Um, but then obviously you pick it up a lot from your interpreters when you're there, because they can teach you,
Sure.
one on one. So
What'd you eat when you were there? Did you have any Afghan foods? Mostly just U.S.
no,
rations.
we had a little bit of both.
Yeah.
We had our own cafeteria in our little compound that we were at. In fact, the Air Force is pretty much in charge of that, so they were making our food for us.
Okay.
But yeah, anytime we were out in town, we'd eat local food when we could. It was actually decent. I mean, I'd stay away from the meat because in our town, it was hanging in the street where cars were driving by, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I get you put salt on that, but it's still there's like flies on it. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't look good,
Yeah.
and it
You need a
tasted.
certain tolerance maybe to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had it once and it tasted rotten.
Okay.
I was like, I'm never eating that
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
But the bread was always amazing. Talking about
Yeah.
the naan bread, that's like the one thing we loved eating there. So
Okay. So you're able to go out in certain parts of Afghanistan. It was fine to walk around, and for the most part, and
I mean, we wouldn't go out without weapons or anything like
Mhm.
that. We were always armed. Like we had to treat like our compound was in the middle of an Afghan city, so we weren't even on a base. There were actually two bases up the road from us, but we were on this tiny little compound that had Romanian soldiers, the small Air Force team, and us. And our perimeter security was like these hired Afghan security that we wouldn't trust with a potato gun. So
Right.
we'd kind of patrol our own stuff. But
gotcha. Gotcha.
so we always slept with a gun under our pillow, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So you left the army, and when did you join the Air Force?
2010.
Oh, so not too far
Yeah.
after. Yeah, you were pretty much done with the.
Yeah, I was like, I think I need to take a break.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you plan on finishing your career in the Air Force?
um, I might retire in a few years.
Okay.
I haven't fully decided yet.
Okay.
I just got promoted a year ago, so
Congratulations.
trying to see
That's
where
cool.
it goes from here. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, right on.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's good. And what else? I mean, you don't fly, right? So what is the Air Force like? Because you're not a pilot.
No.
So, and you said they were cooking the meal. So, because everybody thinks, well, the Air Force, you're just, flying planes. In the Army, you're just shooting at people. The Navy, you're just, on the ships.
Right.
So what are some of the other things that the Air Force might be responsible of? And let's say, in Afghanistan, let's say, obviously they're, flying some planes and things like that. But
Sure. I mean, we do a lot of things for natural disasters.
Okay.
When hurricanes come through, we help clean up the mess or move people around. Other than that, we're training and essentially preparing for hopefully not another conflict, but we're always
Yeah.
preparing and keeping ourselves up to date.
yeah, yeah, I know. I've been listening to the current events of what's happening. Maybe we can talk about that later, but that's not why we're here because there's a lot going on
Sure.
that is a little bit anxiety ridden.
Yeah.
But you brought a book.
I did.
Yeah, tell us about that book.
So my friend Bob Shano actually wrote this, and he has an interesting story. This is his memoir from his entire military career, but he was in a different part of Afghanistan when I was there, and then he ended up getting assigned to our team because he was going around training some of the Afghan police on different things. I guess more advanced stuff. So he ends up coming up to our team, and I don't know if it was before the firefight or after. I'll have to reread the book again, but I remember telling him the story, and he's like, "Oh, this is just a crazy story. Like, I got to add it in my book." And he got not only my perspective, but he got everybody in the firefight pretty much. He got all of their perspectives, and then he wrote the story about it, which I think is chapter 68. But yeah, I'm really glad he did that because it's like now it's written somewhere, and I have like a historic place I can go to find it. You know?
Yeah, because it's not on the internet. I looked.
It's not. No, we haven't released that out there.
There's nothing there. I looked.
Yeah, but I've been writing pages of a book for over a decade now.
Yeah.
I just haven't had enough time to sit down and write a whole book.
Is there other stories you've heard similar to yours, where people have been ambushed like that by just an overwhelming amount of Taliban or any, enemy force?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely stories out there similar to ours, but double-sided ambush that's the unique part of our story. That's something you just don't hear. In fact, there was a new movie that came out called Ranger, and I believe he talked about some firefights he was in, and they were intense firefights, but it was like one coming from one direction, you know. Ours was just so crazy. Not only was it a double-sided ambush, but they had like the high ground and the low ground, and then they had like natural trenches in between because they were like ancient washouts. We called them wadis, but yeah, we were like outnumbered. They had us just pinned. It was crazy.
Are there different vehicles that you could have been traveling in, or this is the standard? I mean, this is
that was the standard at the time. I think after we left, they started bringing in bigger armored vehicles. But yeah, that's all we had.
But nothing penetrated any of the vehicles.
The RPG that hit the middle truck, it actually hit the bottom of the door, and these doors are thick.
Yeah.
And they have like a bolt lock that's supposed to make them impenetrable, but the pressure from when the grenade hit, it was enough to open the seal and allow some of these BBs through and actually hit the driver in the leg. And he didn't know at the time because it was dark, our adrenaline's pumping. You know, it's like I had an injury on my hand. I don't know. I had shrapnel injuries to my hands, and one of the other gunners had a ricochet off his arm. But none of us knew.
You don't know until it's over.
Yeah, until we got back and we were being assessed by medical staff. We had no idea. I was like, crazy. Oh, I have blood on my hands. Like, where did this come from, right?
Yeah. Not only is it blood, but it's actually an injury.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah.
I just can't believe your head's sticking out of that thing and you hear bullets flying by your head.
Oh, I know. I mean, let me tell you, I was ducking every time I heard that, but like, you have split seconds to make that decision.
And you have to keep going.
And keep engaging, because if you don't, then they're just going to keep firing
of course.
at you.
Yeah.
I was going to say there's one part of this that at first they were hitting the middle vehicle because the middle vehicle had a grenade launcher. And from afar, you can see it. It's black. It's big. They probably thought that vehicle had the biggest weapon.
Okay.
It had the most powerful weapon, but I had the weapon that could reach the farthest.
Okay.
And I had painted my barrel because it sticks out pretty far. I painted it tan, so it blended in with the truck. And so, like, you didn't know what weapon I had until it was too late, you know?
Yeah.
So they weren't aiming my truck as much in the beginning, which is the middle truck was just littered with bullets. It didn't really penetrate the armor much. Our truck was hitting the windshield. It hit my shield, which is where the shrapnel came from that I got hit in the hands with. It's just like a bullet that hit my shield and just sprayed on my hands as I was shooting.
God.
But yeah, it was wild.
Now, are you the only one in the turret when you're on patrol, or do you guys take turns? You're it.
Sometimes we would switch out. I'd be the driver of my truck sometimes, but that particular day I was the gunner. Yeah. I'd say probably 75% of the time I was the gunner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was for my commander's truck, so it was an important truck.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. It's an
Yeah.
important truck. Yeah. That's unbelievable, and that you're here to talk about it, and that you seem
Yeah.
pretty well adjusted, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, it took some time for sure.
I bet.
You
Yeah.
know.
Did they give you any time off to like you got to leave and get some downtime? Sort of what happened after that? You get back to base and sort of what goes on there?
Yeah, so I'd say on the ride back, it was like the intensity didn't change for me. I was on guard, adrenaline's still going, and we had to go back to one of the main bases there first to kind of give them our report. But the one thing I like to point out is I remember rolling up to the main gate of this base, and that's the first time I had seen my turret in the light since, the firefight started, and realized how much brass and stuff was around my turret. And like, I could feel the soot on my face. I didn't know, how bad it was at the time, but
The soot from your gun.
just from the weapon, just firing, right? But I remember the guard, the person on duty that day, and his mouth just dropped because I came up and I was like unloading my gun, right, and just flinging, and I was like flinging brass everywhere, and
Brass being just empty shells?
yeah,
or-
empty shells, yeah. I mean, there were thousands of them,
Yeah.
and I just remember this guy's face just dropped, and I was like, wow, that must have been that intense. So yeah, then we go up and we do our thing there, and then we head back to our little compound where we finally got evaluated by medical staff, and that's when we were taking gloves off, finding we had injuries and stuff like that. And yeah, it was wild. But the funny thing is, after we were all done getting evaluated, I went back to my room, and the way I decompressed was I jumped on we had an internal network for like Xboxes there,
Okay.
that's how we had downtime, and I started playing Halo. I'm like, I was talking to the guys. I'm like, I think it's a little weird. I was just in a firefight, and now I'm playing
Yeah.
Halo, but this is relaxing, so I'm just
Yeah.
gonna play this for a while.
Yeah. Do you play? Does it? That's interesting because there's a lot of Halo and all. I mean, I don't.
Sure.
I only played. So years ago, I fell out on an apple tree. Long story. But I was out of work for a month.
Oh, man.
And my kids at the time were playing. I forget the name of it. It was a PlayStation game, but it was you're a soldier and you're going through and you play. So I finished
Sure.
it took me a month. I finished the
Oh, wow.
entire game. But there's a lot of people. Do you think those video games help you and other soldiers? I don't know if it does or not. That's why I'm asking. Like, I don't know how it can prepare you for a real world scenario, but is there some sort of correlation between maybe doing that, at least hand-eye coordination kind of stuff?
I think so. I mean, I played a ton of video games there because you had a lot of, the downtime you had, like you had to fill in the gap somewhere.
Yeah.
And, playing board games with people just, can only go so far.
Sure.
And we had, card tournaments and stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, maybe it has, because even now when I'll play like Battlefield or something, like I find I'm just like better than most of the players that have probably been on there for way longer than me. And I'm
Okay.
like, wow, okay, that's some relevance.
Yeah.
Still good at
Is
it.
there any is there any similarity between experiencing something in the real world and a video game as far as reaction time and moving? And I mean, it's a little different because you're all on a it's all on a hand controller, but
I think it's different because you add the adrenaline piece in there,
yeah.
and that the realism of it. It's that part's different.
Of course. But I
There's
guess
just so much more at
I
stake.
guess technically, as far as how things operate and fire and aim and that kind of stuff, I guess is what I'm thinking about. Not so much personal experience.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess the technical.
I guess they're getting better at video games now, so
Okay.
things are definitely more realistic.
Yeah, I
so-
don't play, so I have no idea. I don't play
Yeah.
video games at all. Yeah,
I do once in a while.
yeah,
like,
yeah, no, it's good.
have some downtime, but that's
maybe I
fair
should.
enough.
I don't though. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I think they're getting better now to the point where it's becoming more accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you leave? Did they say go take some time after that fight and you recovered a little bit? Were you able to leave the country and get some time
Yeah.
off? Or
I mean, when I got back, that was sort of our downtime. I was off for probably a month before I had to return to work, my civilian job.
okay,
But it was actually, I didn't come home to peaceful times at home. My mom was actually in rough shape when I got home.
I'm sorry.
I actually had to get Red Cross in the middle of demobilizing.
Okay.
and she had to get like a 5 organ transplant.
Oy.
She was in surgery for felt like 16 hours. And then she lived for about another 3 months and passed away. But
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, it was unfortunate. But I was glad I at least made it back, to
Yeah.
see her before that happens.
Do you have more family?
Yeah,
You have brothers, sisters, that kind of thing?
yeah, they all live out in New York, so
Oh,
I
they
don't get
do?
to see them
Okay.
that often anymore. But
Anybody else in the military? Your siblings?
no, my grandfather was in the Navy for 4 or 5 years, something like
Okay.
that, and then my uncle
World War II? Did he serve?
No,
Or
I don't remember what
Would that
years
be-
he served. I have to ask him again, but
okay.
yeah, it was in his younger years.
Okay.
And then my uncle, he was a Black Hawk pilot in the Army for a
wow.
long time.
Okay.
He was a warrant officer, so
Okay.
yeah.
What does a warrant officer do?
They're more or less helicopter pilots. They're ground
Okay.
based positions too, but for the most part, helicopter pilots.
They still fly
logistics.
Black Hawks?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought I read something they were getting rid of the Black Hawks. Maybe not.
I have no idea. I haven't read that recently, but
Okay, I don't know.
who
I could be
knows?
completely
They're such an incredible
I
aircraft.
could be completely wrong. Yeah.
I've had the chance to fly on them a few times.
Really?
So,
Yeah. What other aircraft you fly in?
I've flown in
Anything?
Chinooks, C-130s, C-17, C-5s. I think that's about it.
How fast you go? Pretty fast.
Yeah, pretty fast. I remember being on the C5 once, and I looked down at a ground speed, and I was like, that's like practically breaking the sound barrier. That doesn't make
Holy
sense.
cow. Wow.
And a plane that big don't make sense.
Yeah. How big is that plane?
Oh, it's big. We can fit
Yeah.
6 Greyhound buses inside of it.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
We're technically the biggest plane in the world again since the
Okay.
6-engine Antonov plane got destroyed.
Okay.
So
Wow. That's a big plane.
yeah, it's
That's
massive.
fast.
Moves a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't make the, what was that plane? The Concorde.
Yeah.
We went the speed of sound. I don't make that. They don't fly. I wonder why. I've always wanted to know why they decommissioned or they don't use that plane anymore. I always thought that was interesting because it was such a.
Yeah.
I mean, I always want to go on the Concorde. I don't think I would ever be able to, but
I think they had a lot of maintenance issues.
it was a
and
maintenance thing. You think?
probably wasn't environmentally friendly
Probably
either.
not.
Every time it took off, it was like a black trail behind
No,
it.
right. Yeah, but it was
Um,
cool though. Yeah.
But I know NASA's been working on a new Sonic jet. So,
Okay.
and I think they're getting close to production. So
Yeah, you would
that'd
think.
be
You would think we should probably have something that. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
good. The technology. There's a great bit by Louis C.K. He's talking about people complaining on an airplane.
Oh yeah.
Because whatever. And he's like, you're flying, like you're in the air
Yeah.
flying. Like, and you think about it, you put it that way, it's like it's pretty amazing.
Like any chance I get
Yeah.
to defy physics,
Yeah.
that's I take that opportunity.
You ever jump out of a plane?
I did skydiving once
Skydiving?
actually. My wife
Okay.
took me for my birthday one day,
Oh, nice.
and it was a big surprise. It was
Yeah.
like it was cool. We were down
But you
in
never
Virginia.
did it in the military, the Air Force,
No,
Army.
no, I
Okay.
never did.
Okay.
I thought about it probably when I was in the Army. I wanted to do all the cool schools,
Right.
paratrooper stuff. But never
she
went
took
to
you?
jump school.
Nice.
Yeah, so she took me. She blindfolded me on the way there, and then
Awesome.
I remember opening my eyes. I'm like, oh no. Like I've always wanted to do this, but you got like the initial shock, like,
Yeah.
oh crap. But it was cool because it's where the Navy SEALs would go to actually get their annual jumps in.
Oh, okay.
And they were on the plane with me, and like,
Oh, that's
I was
wild.
tandem with the instructor. But I remember the funny thing he said to me. He's like, oh, I've jumped like 3,000 times. And he's like, if the chute doesn't open, don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do about it.
Okay.
Like, all right, cool.
Okay.
Let's go.
Just put you at ease. Like, what are you gonna do? Enjoy
yeah.
it while you can, I suppose.
But we went up to, I think it was like 14,000 feet, and the Navy SEALs jumped out Halo, and they were cheering me on the whole time. They're like, you got this, man, And so then they dropped down a little bit, and I remember the door opened, and I was just like, oh no. And the guy, he's like, 3, 2, 1, and we just fell right out.
Okay. So do you take initiative and jump, or it's a sort of like a joint effort kind of thing?
No, they like tell you what to do. Like you
Okay.
gotta like, arch your back and do all
Okay.
kinds of things. But I remember he was just like, all right, we're going, and I just reacted to it, and we just rolled out of the plane perfectly. But that was the scariest part, was like just looking out. Once
Yeah.
you were out, it was like instant air pressure, so it didn't feel like you were falling anymore.
Oh, interesting.
And it was like bliss the whole way down. It was just blissful.
Huh. So is there like wind in your face, and is there all of that? But
Yeah,
so it feels like you're moving, but at the same time,
it feels like you're floating.
Feels like you're floating just
Yeah,
with a
it
lot
does
of
not
wind.
feel like you're falling at
Really?
all. No, it's a weird feeling.
Well, there's nothing to like. There's nothing next to you going by you either. So maybe
Yeah.
that. So
It's not like you're in a vacuum. You're just gonna like drop.
right.
Like
That's true. Yeah.
there's that air pressure. In fact, as you start like gaining velocity, I could feel my cheeks were like, I was like,
Okay.
oh wow, we're really going fast. This is cool.
How long did it take? You think?
Honestly, it felt like I was in the air for 10 minutes, but it was only like I think 2.5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Like
That's
it
it.
felt so much longer.
That's it.
I think because I was enjoying it.
I
was
think it'd
just
be
like,
longer. I think it'd be longer too.
Yeah.
2.5 minutes.
Oh, actually, you know what? Maybe it was like
Maybe.
4.
I mean, I don't know.
remember specifically. But
Yeah, I thought. I don't think I would do like hang gliding, but maybe I would jumck out of an airplane.
yeah, honestly, it was the coolest thing I've ever done.
I don't know why. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like hang gliding feels more dangerous to me.
Yeah, I actually was just watching a hang glider video yesterday, and like the guy's rope broke in the back, and he like fell right onto the beach. I was like,
Ugh.
that doesn't look pleasant.
No, it doesn't
I don't
look
think I
good.
want to do that.
And those guys that wear those flying squirrel suits.
Yeah, those guys are crazy.
It's crazy what those guys do.
They
Going
come-
through the rocks and everything.
Oh, they got like inches from buildings, and
Nuts.
especially the Red Bull guys. Those guys are
Those guys
crazy.
are insane.
They're always doing something crazy.
Those guys are nuts. Yeah, I
They
wouldn't do
really
that
are.
either.
Yeah.
But maybe out of a plane. Yeah, maybe.
But then I'm
Probably
like,
not.
I did some insane things, so maybe. I
Yeah, you
should.
did. Yeah, you did some insane things. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else we got going on? What do you have planned for? What's coming up next in the Air Force? Anything or just standard?
Not much,
Standard
really.
stuff.
I'm just kind of enjoying the position I'm in right now.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of people in my unit, so, and just learning what that is. I'm training to hopefully get promoted in another year.
Good.
So if that happens, maybe I'll stay a little longer. We'll
Yeah.
see.
And then when you retire, are you retired? Are you going to find something else to do in the civilian world, or you're kind of done?
No, actually,
Because you seem like a young guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Actually, I've always wanted to be an actor, so for the last 2.5 years, I've been doing a lot of extra background
Cool.
work. It's just something I've always been interested in since I was a younger kid, and I never really had the time to do it. And when my wife wanted to move back to New England, I realized I was like, well, I'm pretty close to New York, and maybe I can, pursue this thing. So I took an acting lesson. I was like, oh, I really like this. And then they told me how to, join all these websites and apply to all these different acting gigs. And as soon as I was on set, I'm like, this is where I'm meant to be. Like, this
Okay.
feels like home.
Nice.
It feels like military to me, honestly. The way they do things, it's very
Okay.
organized and
Yeah.
chaotic sometimes.
Yeah,
so
yeah, well, yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. Excellent. Or what is it?
Yeah.
Organized chaos. Whatever.
Organized chaos. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
Any-
was.
What kind of stuff have you been on? Like any dramatic things, corporate stuff? Like what are some of the jobs you've had?
Actually, one of my first gigs was on a show called Evil Lives Here.
Okay.
It's on Discovery Plus.
Okay.
It's basically like reenactments of murderers, and
Oh, that's
I
cool.
always played cop roles or a detective.
yeah.
And then I was on the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, Get Out.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
it was wild. It was,
Because I watched that show. I don't know if I caught the last season or the last few episodes. What'd you do?
I played like a businessman. I was on the
Okay.
subway. I actually had a really cool spot. Rachel Brosnahan and I forgot who the guy was, but she was being chased for the subway train, and like they stop. There's a woman next to me. They called her the Chanel woman because she was wearing like some Chanel, and Rachel makes a comment about it. But they ended up like cutting my face off, and I was like, "Oh man, that would have been a perfect shot."
Oh.
But I was caught coming out of the subway in another scene
Okay.
behind a newspaper. So I was like, oh, at least I got
Oh,
that.
there you got
know?
that. Oh, that's wild. Yeah, that's a cool show.
That was only 3 days of work to get
Yeah,
that 30-second clip, but
Oh,
whatever.
really? 3 days of work for that, huh?
Yeah, it was a
Holy
lot.
smokes. Where was that shot? Was that New York?
Yeah, it was in Brooklyn,
Okay.
and it was like summer, but we were in winter clothes,
Oh, yeah.
so it was really hot.
Yeah.
But Billions was actually my most prominent role so far. I played a featured background role. I got to work with Paul Giamatti.
Okay.
It was right on Wall Street. They basically had us as state troopers, and we had to surround him so that the I think it was the attorney general could like corner him and talk to him. That was really cool.
I'll have to check. That was a great show.
It was. I mean, I was this far from Paul, and I had to
Really?
like stare him down. I'm like, this is this is a crazy,
That is
it
wild,
felt
man.
surreal.
I'll have
in
to
the
go back
moment.
and find that episode.
Yeah,
That's very cool
yeah.
because that was a great show. Yeah,
It
my
was.
friend and I
Yeah.
used to
It
watch
was
that
the
a lot.
first episode in the last season there. So.
Okay, yeah, I'll check it. I'll definitely check it
Yeah.
out. Yeah, I'll look for you.
But
That's
yeah,
really
I've done some other. There's a Christmas movie that's coming out that I had more featured role in.
Hallmark. Is it a
I don't know
Hallmark
if it's
movie?
Hallmark or HBO.
Okay.
They've kept it.
Hallmark shoots a lot in Connecticut, so I was just wondering.
Yeah, they've kept it such a secret up to this point. Like it's not even on IMDb yet. I'm like,
Okay. Wow.
are they gonna release it soon?
Okay.
Oh, I also did The Walking Dead. I played
Okay.
a infantry soldier, but
Okay.
I was mostly
Hey,
covered
you've
up
been
for that,
busy.
so- yeah,
Holy cow! Right on,
a
man.
lot of little ones and
That's
some
good.
big ones.
That's all right.
But it's fun, and I'm hoping to eventually have some more speaking roles. That's
Yeah.
my goal. So,
Yeah. That's very cool.
but I gotta have the time. So
Sure. Yeah, you get there. Yeah, a few
Yeah.
more years, and
Sure.
you're out. You're good to go.
Yeah.
You have a little
Yeah.
pension, hopefully, to support you
Hopefully.
as you get your acting career up and running.
exactly, then I can
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah. No, exactly.
But yeah, that's why I have time to pursue this documentary and push this thing. So
Yep. Yeah, I think it's important. What do you two reasons. Why do you think the story needs to be told? And then after the story's told, what do you hope is going to be the result of the information in this story being out there?
I'm the thing is I'm always thinking about this every day. It's in my head, and I think it's because I don't want to forget it, right? And that's why I'm glad that it was written in here, because at least I can go back if I forget something. I'm like, oh yeah, I told my friend Bob about this story. But I think it's important for all of us because we can finally just let go of it. Like I don't have to keep remembering it every day, And then the other part is that it's a part of history, and it's a part of history people don't know. Those stories are starting to come out now, and I believe that it's because we're out of the country now. It's a lot easier to talk about. We don't have to worry about releasing something that could hurt somebody. So that's why I think it's important to get it out now. Well, partially because we don't want to be forgotten either. But yeah, I think it's an important story that we'd all like to see.
What are your colleagues or partners that what do you call them when you're out there? Are they when you're riding with somebody in your Humvee? What do you?
I always say battle buddy.
Battle buddy?
Yeah,
So
or
what are your
battle
buddies? I don't know if there's like a specific. So what are your buddies? I mean, they excited for you to produce this thing? Are they on board? Were they a little bit hesitant?
No, not at all. In fact, they're all on board for it. They all want to be part of it. So, yeah, I'm hoping that we can all do interviews to make part of it. Maybe some reenactments to bring it to life. But
are you going to? Now, I was fortunate enough. You shared a little clip of what was recorded. And before, does every Humvee, do all vehicles like that have audio video support? Then when something happens, or was that your GoPro? Like, why was that? How were you able to record that?
So back then, obviously we didn't have iPhones, but we all had cameras.
Yeah.
But we were trying to capture everything, right? In fact, the military wanted us to capture things so that they could have something. So whether it was disposable cameras or someone had more sophisticated camcorders, we all pretty much had a camera on us. And in fact, my driver he turned his camera on, but I think it was facing down, so it was just black the whole time. But he caught at least half of the audio in my truck. Like that little piece at the end you hear, I just put a picture there so you have a reference. But yeah, that was just a small piece of the video clip from my truck. And Sergeant Hammer, who was in the other truck, he had just turned on his camera, and in fact, I think he said he forgot it was even on the whole time. And he ended up recording most of the firefight. So
yeah, as I was saying, you shared it with me, and it starts, and then the image gets dirty really quick.
yeah, it does.
Where was the camera that you were actually able to see? Was it pointing out a window? Was it outside the truck?
It was actually because he was sitting in the passenger seat, so it was right up against the armored window, which is like 4 or 5 inches thick. Like,
oh, okay, yeah, because it's
yeah, it was really thick. And I don't know if it got dirty or the camera lens just started focusing on the inside of the window, which probably was dusty.
Maybe
that's probably what happened. But
yeah.
It goes in and out of focus. It was in focus probably the majority of the time.
Okay.
But,
yeah, because you only shared with me. I think it was like a
just
minute
that
clip
small
or
little piece,
30-second clip or something like that. It was very short.
well, I think it was when they got hit with the RPG. Is probably when it bounced the camera off the
maybe.
windshield there.
Yeah. So you have all that. Obviously, you have all that.
Oh
footage.
yeah, it's all documented.
Does the Army still has a copy of that, and they were okay with you using it, or?
They never had a copy, but we always kept it to ourselves.
Okay.
They didn't ask for copies of the stuff that we filmed or anything.
Okay.
But it was more like on us to, maintain that, not show people.
Okay.
I forget it's like after 10 years things start declassifying, but
Okay.
on the safe side we just never shared it. So
Yeah, and you don't have any worries about sharing it now. I mean, that's
no, it's been so long and we're not even there anymore, so there's
Okay.
really no
okay.
reason to worry. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's crazy.
that is.
Yeah, I'm excited. When do you hope to have this whole? I mean, I know it's a long process documentary, especially something
Yeah.
like this. You guys, you get all the people because they're probably scattered around the country now,
are.
or whatever. What's your hope for sort of getting this done and out?
I mean, I don't want to rush it because I want to put out, the best product we can create. But maybe within a year, I'd like to see
Okay.
something,
Yeah.
that I can either pitch at a festival
Sure.
or, gain some investor interest maybe that
Yeah.
can help us bring this
Gotcha.
maybe to a feature film would be
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
But,
that'd be cool.
but yeah.
Yeah, right on. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you coming in here today. Learned a lot about the Army and the Air Force and also RPGs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. RPGs. What's an RPG?
I know,
So,
right?
so now I know. So that's crazy. I'm glad you survived and your buddy
Yeah.
survived. I think it's important. And thank you again for your service.
No, thank you.
And
Appreciate that.
anything else you want to tell us, people? If people need information about what's happening, if they want to reach out to you, do you want to share some of that information, or you don't have
yeah,
to?
I mean, maybe I'll share that a little later.
yeah,
But
that's fine.
but yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I thought I'd give you the opportunity.
I'll send out some updates on my IMDb page or not my Instagram or something.
Instagram.
Like that.
Yeah, and good luck on the acting, man.
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
I appreciate
Please keep me in touch with what's
Yeah,
going
well,
on.
for
Yeah,
sure.
That'd be good. I'd love to. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna go back and look at Billions if I can find you. Yeah, it's a good
It's
show.
a great spot.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
everybody. This has been a production of Direct Line Media.